Welcome to the Flower Prophecies, a podcast exploring all things flower essences and remedies and flower therapy, and how this vibrational plant medicine has the potential to heal and shift our individual and collective health and consciousness. We'll be diving deep into the specifics of individual essences, nature's energetics, emotional healing and growth, as well as hearing client case studies, hosting special guests and professionals, and I'll be sharing my own personal explorations and philosophies channeled straight from the flowers. Through my own unearthing, I have discovered what I believe to be the most profound teaching of the flowers, and I now wish to share with you the practice of alchemizing fear into beauty. So welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. Today we have the beautiful Sarah Baiada, and Sarah is a natural health practitioner, a writer, a teacher and a mentor. She works with many modalities, one being vibrational medicine. She has a deep passion and a vast knowledge of working with the energetic systems and incorporates this into her offerings to help women access and express their inner world and wisdom. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I would love to get straight into it and ask you, so obviously your experience, you have been working in the healing and wellness industry and realm for over a couple of decades, I think it is. And in that time, I'm sure your offerings have moved through many different evolutions. I would love if you could share a bit about the main focus of your work now and the elements and modalities that you incorporate into this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. It has changed quite a lot, but it's very much based from my perception in that's how it's changed. At the beginning, I've been learning biology since I was like 4. My sister is a little bit older than me, and she was always fascinated with the body, and I was just drawn to learning how the body works. And I was always doing things with my hands, healing with my hands, like if an animal came into our backyard and got attacked by one of our cats, I would nurse the bird back to health. My parents actually thought I was going to be a veterinarian at one point, but I just had this fascination with the human body, and I just worked with whatever I had access with. So I was working with essential oils. From my mum always had essential oils around. So yeah, I was always working with whatever I had, but I always had this draw to help wherever I could. In high school, my friends would call me like Dr. Sarah, like, what can I've got this, like, what do you know about that? And I was always researching and studying science. It was just science, anything I could get my hands onto, mixed with a rebellious nature, getting into fights with my chemistry and biology teachers about facts, and always fascinated with natural health, like always getting in trouble for like bringing in chlorophyll in my water into classrooms, getting in trouble for, I was always seeing a chiropractor since I was 12. So learning every week with my chiropractor of like, you shouldn't be carrying all these books in your backpack, and trying to educate my teachers and my fellow students wherever I could. Going into college, obviously, I was learning with people who were fascinated with the same things that I was, and a lot of them were international students. So I was learning different modalities from all different places, from like Chinese medicine, Western medicine, traditional medicines. Then that's where I got introduced to vibrational medicines through my beautiful teachers. And it carried on to starting to develop my unique skill set when I married my love for my curiosity and my love for marrying science and religion, and like science, spirituality. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, was very fruitful and colourful in its own experience in the late 90s, early 2000s. But there was always this sense of trying to comprehend how this mindscape worked with the physical body. And then once I'd finished college, working one-on-one, I've massaged thousands of people over the years. And that's where I really started marrying the two. And, you know, as anyone who's worked with any body of work or body work, it's therapy. You're accessing people's subconscious patterns. You're accessing people's nervous system, their stress responses. You're witnessing firsthand. And because I was a natural healer and picking up so much information with my hands, the information was just flowing, and it was more about my observation of that, going from just textbook to practical work and figuring out what is happening. Because I mean, I've only had a couple of clients that have ever looked like the anatomy books, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we did quite a few counseling courses and things like that, but it was really vibrational medicines and looking into these other aspects that started to put the pieces together for me. And obviously, once I finished college and went off and did my own kind of self-discovery, through putting myself in insane situations and seeing how I worked in those situations. But that's when I started, the pendulum went from rope learning all this information and like acing it. And just, this was my love, this was my passion. And then the pendulum flew the other way to, I have no idea of the fundamentals of this reality, and just learning through that experience. So a big one was going to India for 6 months and learning on the job, especially as a Western female, getting introduced to, I never learnt from any gurus or anything, but I was definitely trying to find a teacher of some sort, and just having really crazy experiences, turning on my internal navigation systems to learn these other realms. So at this point, I've moved into more teaching, training, and supporting teachers and practitioners because the journey is actually really hard for someone who is extraordinarily sensitive. And now, obviously, sensitivities are labeled as this, and that, and as though they're a problem and something need to be fixed. That's absolutely not true. Our sensitivities are our gifts. At first, they seem like a curse because we're not in a world where that is supported. Usually, you would go off with a medicine man or woman or the elders of the tribe and you would learn. We don't have that system set up in our Western culture. I was always searching for a teacher, and I wasn't finding them the way that I thought or felt they needed to be presented or a work. And so that's what I'm trying to do for other practitioners, other women that are coming up in this world who have to navigate such insane situations. And I've experienced so much of it. So just passing on what I can so that they don't have to go through so much shit, basically, especially because a lot of the time when I was growing up, most of the spiritual teachers were men. That's just a recipe for disaster. And we've all seen it. It's an unspoken truth throughout the medicine worlds, flower medicine, obviously, vibrational medicines. It's uncharted territory for women to step into, and there needs to be more stronger females in leadership roles. And so I focus on teaching those next generations of females coming up to be in those teaching roles and how to navigate this world and these next kind of steps as everything is getting a little bit more clearer of what this reality is, and how we can offer our gifts the way that we're supposed to offer them here and not get sidetracked along the way.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. And I want to touch on that a little bit deeper in terms of what you're now offering and how that plays out. But I first would love to ask you about, so you were introduced to vibrational medicine and flower essences through some of your teachers in the past. I'd love to get your experience with how you first, started to connect with them and really implement them into your own personal use and then your use with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. My first experience with vibrational medicines was studying nutritional medicine. I had already studied integrative body therapies, remedial massage. I was already practicing as a remedial massage therapist, aromatherapist at that point, and I had gone back to study 3 or 4 years of nutritional medicine. I was very entrenched in the scientific approach to medicine, to healing. You needed to know what are the active ingredients, how everything works. Extraordinarily important information to know. Absolutely. However, I didn't know how to plant a herb. There was a really big gap, obviously, in the way that we were taught, and obviously it's changed a lot in that the last, I'm not even going to say how many years that has been, but I went to my first Bach flower class. We got shown a list of, okay, we all need to take a Bach flower essence through this course, and we're going to experience it, and this is how we're going to learn it. So we all needed to choose. And I saw the descriptions, and I'm like, okay. I saw clematis, and I thought, oh, psychic abilities, and the draw card was talking to dogs, talk to animals. And I was like, that would be fun. My little fucking head, my very immature head voice saying, that would be fun. And so I started taking it. And then after the first night, the veil between real and unreal dropped immediately. I had no comprehension whether I was awake or asleep. This was the first time that I had ever experienced anything like this, and it was from an essence. I thought they were full of shit to begin with, because like, as if this is going to work. And then I got my ass handed to me, which is the best way to learn something, I think, for myself. It was all or nothing. And I remember being 3 a.m. in the morning. I was in and out of dream state. My dreams were as real as my reality. I didn't know if I was awake or asleep. And the only person I knew that would be awake at 3 a.m. is my now husband. We were friends at the time. But I knew that he was a night owl and he was studying journalism at the time. I knew that he'd be up. So I called him and I just said, hey, is this a dream? And he was like, oh, what? Are you okay? And I'm like, is this a dream? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And just hung up and gave him no explanation of what the fuck was going on. And then the next morning I went to my teacher, my beautiful teacher, Leah, who is like a pioneer in natural fertility now. But back then she was my beautiful teacher, teaching vibrational medicines. And I said, what have you given me? And she just looked at me and she took a step back and she was holding her miso soup in a coffee cup, I remember. And she was like, oh, you're very sensitive. You need to take the child dose. And I'm like, that would have been really helpful information. And so I started taking the child dose, and then obviously, I started having more experiences with it. I was in the library before computers were really a thing. I'm really old right now. But I was writing and I was studying for an exam. And then I felt a hand on my arm, and I turned around and there was nothing there and no one there. And it was just as real as a hand. Like I could feel the heat, I could feel the weight, I could feel this hand on my arm. And then I turned around, nothing there. And then I turned back around, started studying, and I felt that arm again, the hand again on my arm. And then that's when it really started opening up. So the thing that woke me up was vibrational medicines. Some people open up through more intense plant medicines like ayahuasca or like Wachuma or something. Mine was clematis, and it's kind of gone full circle because I've been making vibrational medicines here and learning with the flowers here. And I was sitting at the back. I've got a beautiful little garden, and my neighbor, I turned and there was this beautiful, bright purple, like deep purple flower just looking at me. I was like, oh my God, you are stunning. Like, who are you? And it was just like psychic. And I was like, uh-huh. And it wasn't clocking what it was. And it was like, you've worked with me before, you know who I am. I was like, what? And then and then I realized, like, oh, that's clematis. So I actually make my own one 3 weeks ago. It was with the Sirius moon star energy, and it's pretty strong. It's pretty effective.
So you've been using it then?
I made a beautiful blend for myself, and I made a blend with these beautiful roses that are growing really close to it, and these beautiful little star medicines that are growing very close to it as well. So it's the energy that I'm working with at the moment, and it's been extraordinarily supportive and not so abrasive, and I'm proud of myself for not needing to get my ass handed to me so much this time out. But yeah, that's how I started. That's how I opened up and started working with vibrational medicines. But I also have a vibrational medicine line called Rosa Temple, and I work with I put essences in my products, and I've been working with essences with my clients for 20 years, putting them in blends, learning how they work. As soon as you've kind of got the template within your body, you can call on that flower to work with you and your client because you're in such close, intimate proximity. There are these beautiful teachers that come through and work with you, with your client, and you're having that ceremony, that connection with your clients, and they're learning with the plants through you because you're holding the template of the flowers and all of the connections you've ever worked with. So in my treatment room that I had in Sydney and in Byron before I left, I had a big poster of the Bach flowers that I found in front of an op shop in Newtown in Sydney. And it has all the Bach flowers. And so I'll be working with clients and I would be like, okay, what is needed in this situation right now? And my eyes would be drawn to a specific Bach flower. And because I've worked with all of them, that frequency is coming through and it's working with the client, and it's giving you the message of, no, the subconscious pattern that we're actually working through with this shoulder muscle or this leg or the hips is this abandonment issue from their mum from when they were 4, and that's why we're working with that specific connection, and we're just easing that release as graceful as possible so that it can all flow again. it's kind of fascinating to me that everyone still sees like flowers and vibrational medicines as this like whimsical, like, yeah, like they're flowers. It's like, no, they are literally the strongest medicine that we have on this planet. Do not have the eyes to see that just yet. And that's okay. You just work with them from whatever perspective you're at the time.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And that's fascinating to hear your initial experience with them. As I mentioned, I've been using them for a long time, but when I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before. I think I have though. When I first started intentionally using them, I had a pretty like ass whooping experience as well. I actually took myself to hospital.
I've actually had that quite a few times, to be fair.
Yeah, and it wasn't
out of control, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't until, in retrospect, I think a few days later, I was like, oh,
This is why I feel the importance of female leaders teaching at this moment, so that when people are working with essences and working with plants, they have someone to actually talk to, because it can be so full on. It can be such a full on experience, because for someone who's been so in control and so like looking through these really small perspectives, it opens that up. It literally blossoms your perception. And if you've never been in a, like, for example, if you've never been drunk and you get drunk and you're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, it's this, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's similar to like this full expansion of your mind and your perception, which we're not used to having anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm really trying to focus on working with these next practitioners coming through, because they need to know what is happening.
Yeah. And that was like, for me, a big message from the very get-go. It was like I automatically received that message from the flower that was, this is the potential of this medicine. Now, so like when you're working with people, this is how deep it goes,
Yeah, because when you're in a practitioner perspective and when you're working with clients and you're working with essences, things can happen that you've never seen before, and you're learning on the job, which is insanity, because we need to we need more case studies. We need so much more research from the female perspective. This is a really important point. You're working with feminine energy. You need female perspectives leading this research and gathering and having the female perspective and their view and what they're actually witnessing, because females have this beautiful capacity to hold so many different perspectives and viewpoints at once, and have that ability to communicate that and put it in the most simplest form as possible. And that is what's actually needed. Like, we've been learning this stuff through a very masculine perspective, and we need females to be sharing their gifts right now and sharing this information, because like if you have someone on your table and they start doing something that you've never seen a human do, you've never seen a human go into a fetal position and cry their eyes out and start talking in a different language, for example, a very extreme example. But if you've never seen something like that, you're the one holding the space, right? And if it's outside of your scope, like, you need to know how to provide the most safest and secure environment for that person to go through their experience.
Yeah, totally. And it is, I think what you are providing is so necessary in that realm, because, after starting to then work with clients and work with the medicine, I've really witnessed its power and its potential also increase just in the last couple of years, like tenfold, and there was almost like a really like pertinent moment of shifting in that actually I was like, I need more capacity myself to hold these people, and I witnessed that change. And so I think what you're offering is so necessary, and I'd love for you to expand on how, if you would like to, like some of the I guess tools or some of the offerings that you share with women in that space.
What you've described and your own personal experience is actually what has happened. It has gone tenfold. It has expanded, like it has accelerated, and it's making the healers, the practitioners, the people that it's their birthright to work with plants and pass on this information and be a voice for the land, for the earth, for their community to speak. They're going through a really difficult time right now of expanding their capacity to hold and transmute and release and move through this information, because we're not taught how to do this. That's why we're all having to learn through our own experiences, which we do need to learn through our own experiences because it's our own relationship. It's a completely sovereign experience. You have to learn through your own interaction in your own environment. But there are ways to support that experience. So I don't like, I've always wanted to write a reference book of this does this and this does this. But every time I go to it, it's like, no, but it could also be this, and it can be this, and it can present itself in a different way, because every single person is completely different and everyone has their own unique experience with plants, which taps into their generational coding, which taps into their star coding, which taps into their own environment and their own connection with the earth, because the contract with the earth is the strongest contract we have. And that's what we're expanding on through the work with our relationship with the plants. So what I try to provide is it's pretty interesting that it has turned out this way. But I work with teaching how to work with, I call them internal communication network systems.
Okay.
That means is that you have blood vessels that hold and support your blood, right? Well, what about the life force? What about your light? What about your soul light and your energetic blueprint coming through? So I work predominantly with teaching people how to expand their capacity to work with their own light and their own information and their own wisdom as gracefully as possible. So I've run teaching programs in the past. The last one I ran was in Byron Bay with some of my more advanced students, which was holistic embodiment, which was I actually did pass on a grounding technique that I work with clients with, and I taught these beautiful practitioners, these beautiful women, how to do it for themselves. And within that was a whole bunch of activations for them to experience with the earth. I've ran a more educational course called Universal Energetics, which is teaching some more of the unknown things that can happen in the practitioner world when you're working with clients, especially with the focus of stress responses and trauma experiences coming to the surface. It delved into how energetic systems work in the body, how we work with the earth, how to work with land that you have not been born onto or have a genetic lineage to, and why you've been called to that land, how to work with your environment as ethically as humanly possible. And a lot of my teachings there's a lot of information, but then the practical work that we do is to support those self-initiations with as as graceful as possible, with the support network around for people to talk and explore without it having to be so overwhelming and such a big life burning down experience. Because I've worked with different mentors and whatnot, especially in the male ones, where not against male mentors in any capacity, but a lot of the time they're taking you along their own journey and teaching you along the way. They haven't, and I see a lot of females do this as well, but like a lot of the time people teach while they're still learning for themselves. So they haven't mastered the codes within themselves. They haven't seen the perspectives and how it can present. So what happens is that you are getting entangled into their experience, and it's a very unsovereign experience. So the way I teach is listening to what my students actually need at that time to help them with the next steps of the collective experience and getting them ready to support the next wave of people waking up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what a huge range of offerings, but so necessary in all that they are, right? And I was just actually, I have been, I mean, this is, you know, probably the tip of the iceberg for your stuff, but for me personally, like the last little while, I have been reflecting on, you know, this lack of, I guess, information that practitioners do provide their clients to be really understanding what is going on for them, right? And really understanding like why all these things are coming about and why all these emotions are coming up, or like what that emotion or what that feeling or what that sense is even, what is even going on for them. And I see this, you know, I do think it's very like, even like specifically with like energy workers that are there to just do like, you know, energy work in the very basic terms of energy work, you know, whether that be like Reiki or like energy clearing or whatever, you know, not providing this foundational understanding to their client of what they're actually doing for them, what their client actually is experiencing and what is going on for them, and the potential of what they can experience. And I think it's something that has been really coming up for me lately, is how even a lot of the practitioners that I may witness don't know this stuff themselves either. Yeah.
A massive focus for me, because I have seen so much unethical behavior within the energy world. And a lot of practitioners saying that they are doing one thing, but they haven't learned it within themselves first. And so what they're passing on isn't actually the whole, I'm going to say in inverted commas, the truth of it. But the other big thing that I see is that a lot of people are practicing when they don't have eyes to see. So we are always, as soon as you're dropping into those different perspectives and a broader perspective of what you're working with, you're saying to the world, I'm ready for this. And it's like, okay, let's take a little bit of that veil off and you can see. But if you don't have eyes to see, you might be playing with the wolf in sheep's clothing, and you're saying to the world, I'm the one that is creating the safe environment, when you haven't created the safe environment for yourself first. And when I say safe environment, it's not that, it's a deeper sense of security within yourself to live in a dualistic reality. And you've gone through your initiations of self-sovereignty, you've basically said, you've put up the boundary, you've put up the barrier of, I don't want this. I'm choosing not to have this in my world. This contract is ended. I don't want to work from this space anymore. What I witness is a lot of practitioners just playing in the same, I'm going to say, poo pile as their clients, and they're not pulling them. They're not inviting the water in to clear it out, because they don't realize that they're swimming in poo. They don't realize that they are still playing with the same frequencies, and it's because they haven't mastered it within themselves yet. And that's because we've hit a cap. I'm noticing with breath work, somatic work, like we're touching on the more extreme modalities of energetic work. But I've spoken to other practitioners that are like, can see in the capacity that I can kind of see. And we're all like, it's like, yeah, people don't want to actually do the inner work. They want the extreme reaction. They want to feel like they're doing the work, but they're not actually doing the work. And we're moving into a point in our collective experience where if you're not going inside of yourself and saying, hey, I don't require this to be a magnet for my reality anymore, and I don't want to work with this anymore. Thank you for all the lessons. I've really appreciated it. Bye. Then the veils are getting too thin, and there's too much stuff available for us to keep playing this stuff out. A lot of the practitioners I see are still just children playing in the children, thinking that they're dominating the field when they're just playing with their inadequacies still. And I know that sounds really harsh, but like, I'm still witnessing it over and over again. And, you know, I lived in Byron for the last 6 years, and I've witnessed a lot of crap go down in Byron. Absolute beautiful practitioners. There's people doing phenomenal work in that region, especially the elders. Like, it's insane how the wealth of knowledge in that area. It also attracts a lot of people trying to find answers in all the wrong places, still within themselves. They project that out, saying that they're practitioners when they're really not. They're still very much students.
Yeah.
That they're more than they are. But yeah, it's a little different over here. But yeah, we'll just too much.
No, it's not too much. I think it was last night or the night before I came across a video on Instagram, you know, of this practitioner and practitioner trainer. So someone who teaches a lot of other people and has made this name for herself with a lot of other people. And the video that I watched really just like, I was so I guess astounded that video was online. She was, you know, having this kind of shock factor, right, where she's actually utilizing someone's private release and transformation, but in a training, but with moving from like one person to the next, to the next, to the next, making like out she was like this magician or something, but it's like doing this energy work on people and then just taking all of that energy and going on to the next person that's like 2 meters away and making it out like it's this grandiose thing. And I was just like, you probably know who I'm like, or maybe you've seen the video, I don't know,
but I hope you do keep this in. I see stuff all of the time, and I mean, I know someone coined the term of like energetic hygiene, but I see so much crap like that online, and it's literally for people to feel like they are the goddess or the god or whatever, and they just want to show that they're doing it. So there's some general rules when it comes to working with clients. There is privacy. Yes, you can sign a form at the start of an event and all that kind of stuff, but like you don't show someone's personal experience of things, leaving all these big experiences, because I find it extraordinarily unethical, and I find it extraordinarily disrespectful. And it's also showing me that that person has no initiations into their own sacredness, and they are not listening to universal law in any capacity, because things that are like, there's a First Nations people don't have have certain photos, for example, showing certain things. You don't talk about certain things, right? There's a reason for that, because you can reactivate certain things. If you, and this is what I mean, people they are doing these things because they've seen someone else do it, or they feel like they have the right to do it with someone. But when you have eyes to see, you see them just energy harvesting. You see them creating a field for other things to come in that is not beneficial for anyone in that experience. And this is why I was trying to teach like energetic ethics, and I ran a course called Spring Clean for a long time, which was basically just cleaning out your house, learning how to clear your body every single day. If you're going to be doing these initiations and you're going to be doing this work, first rule of thumb, first fucking rule, if you've worked on someone, you go wash your hands after it. Or you go put your feet in the water. You go put your feet on the ground, but you need water to help to clear. If you're going from one person to the next, you are not as clear as you might feel like you are. And you're also creating a very unhealthy connection to each person in that circle. Don't even get me started on the tantra stuff. But when I don't really go to that many people's things, because I can see how unhygienic the space is. They're not disconnecting the connection between each individual in that room before they leave. So people are feeding off each other. People are like the people in the group that can hold more capacity are still, there's an energetic line going into the people that are naturally programmed to be in a victim mode or feel like a black hole and just like sucking life out of other people, because they haven't quenched that thirst within themselves to realize, hey, I don't need to be in this perspective or mode anymore.
Yeah.
This is why in a lot of cultures and traditions, you go through your initiations, you do a lot of self-work, you go spend time in a cave by yourself for a decade or so. You learn how to work with yourself. You learn how to turn on your sensory and your perception receptors more, so that you're more sensitive and you can actually feel what is happening, especially when you get into the subtle realms. I have worked with beautiful medicine women that do know this stuff, and it is phenomenal, but they are so rooted into their tradition and natural law that has been passed down. In Western culture, you go to a weekend course to learn how to serve hape or to work with people's wombs, and then you're running courses and creating beautiful videos to pass on to lure people in, but it only will make their experience harder in the long run. The amount of stuff I have to clean up with my clients is insane.
A quick note, if you are a creative, an entrepreneur, or someone with a deep passion or vision that you would like to expand into, if you know your potential and are desiring to transmute your fears into fuel for fulfilling it, if you want to learn more about yourself so that your relationships can feel expansive and easeful, and if this episode is stirring something within you, I want to share with you that I offer one-to-one mentoring packages where we will explore flower essences and using them to harness and harmonize your vision and creativity. Drawing upon all I have navigated and learned from working in the creative industries for a decade to creating deep relationships with the flowers, alchemizing my own fears, blind spots and roadblocks, I have curated these 3-month packages to offer you deep healing, growth, and tangible resources to tap into your personal and creative evolution. Again, if this is stirring something within you that is calling to be tapped into, you can book a connection call or sign up for the Beauty Way packages via the link in the show notes or by heading to hekahealing.com.au/thebeautyway. I look forward to sharing the flower medicine with you. So, I would love if you could explore a little bit more. You've mentioned it a little bit here about natural lore, LORE, and, for those listening, what that sort of encapsulates and the importance of it.
Yep. It's a really great question. Thank you for asking it. I feel like everyone's description of natural lore will be different because everyone has a different experience with it, depending on where you've learnt it. But traditionally, LORE, like lore, is the passing down of wisdom, of knowledge, of information, of stories, usually verbal. It's not always written down. But lore is always a way of living and caring more harmoniously with the earth. So our perception of natural lore can change depending on where you've learned, where you've been born, who you've been learning with. My perception of natural lore is really rooted in, like, natural lore is the experience of it's the observation of the experience that you are having with yourself and with nature. So, for example, it was really a way of caring for the land, caring for the earth, and deepening our relationship with the earth, and also a way of keeping us safe and passing down information and knowledge. So, for example, you're living near the river. Don't pee at the start of the river where it's going to go down to where we're collecting water. It can extend to, I have a personal experience with learning the more subtle ways of this. I was going to a waterfall with my beautiful friend that we would always go to. And the waterfall, the spirit, I'm going to say fairies, they weren't where we always spoke with them. And so we climbed up the cliff and we started walking up more of the river because it felt like they were upstream. And as we're walking, I start getting this really strong sensation of we're not meant to be here, something's not right. And then my fear at the was snakes, for example. And so I started feeling when is snakes? What is happening? When is snakes? And then my friend was experiencing it similarly. And then we both felt this elder who wasn't in physical form, this elder come up to us and say, something not so good has happened on this land. This land is in a time of healing. We do not want people on this land right now. And we're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. We hear you. Thank you for letting us know. And obviously, is there anything that we can look through our skill sets? Is there any way that we can help in any capacity? And the message was, thank you. But on this land, time is what is needed. And and then we walked a little bit further. We said thank you, of course, and then we walked a little bit like to the other direction and upstream, and that's where the I'm going to say fairies, the energy that we were had a relationship with, had a communication with, was there, and then they kind of told us the story of what had happened and the story of the land and why we couldn't have access to a specific part. I see natural law as that's us listening to our body, listening to the needs of the land, because it has the information, and we are still guests in that situation, and it is deep listening that is required, so that we keep ourselves safe and we honor what the land actually needs. Yeah, and like I feel like natural law will be expressed in different ways by different people, because every culture, every tribe, every mob has their own verbal story that has been passed down to keep everyone safe and respected on the land, and keeping that keeping the caring for the land alive. Instead of like coming in with a colonialism view of like, I'm just going to build here and I'm going to do this here. And it's like, no, there's a natural rhythm here, and you need to abide by that for your own safety, for the respect of the land, for the respect of the elders, for the people that have walked that land before, and for the future people that will walk that land before. Yeah, so I had been thinking about natural law recently, of just like, well, how would you even describe it? Because it just kind of is, right? But you access natural law by that deeper listening of the needs of the environment, and they work through your internal navigation system, your nervous system, to give you the warning signs, to let your body know, is it safe here? Is it not safe here? And if you don't listen to that, you're going to fall off a cliff, or you're going to get spiked by that tree, or a snake's going to come out. There's natural defense mechanisms in place. But it comes down to like keeping yourself safe and keeping and respecting the land, and respecting the traditional custodians of that land.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, speaking of the land and the land that you're on, so you mentioned earlier how you have, moved from Australia to Amsterdam, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience with that shift and navigating, I guess, not only like differences in just like the plants and the flowers there, but also in just like a different land that you're on, and what that has sort of brought up for you, if you'd like to share, and how you've navigated that.
Well, I have been, I'm born in Australia. I've lived there my whole life. I've traveled a lot, but the last place we were living was Byron Bay for the last 6 years. And I feel like I started getting this call to, okay, you need to move to the Northern Hemisphere, because you're kind of, you've learned what you've needed to learn to this point with the Southern Hemisphere, and you're kind of required in the Northern Hemisphere. So, as soon as we were able to get out of lockdown in Australia, my husband and my 2 sons, we all hopped on a plane and we went around Europe for 14 weeks. It was kind of like a scouting mission to see. My husband was going to a lot of conferences and I was doing work, and like I was able to do a lot of like the Magdalene trails and go to all these phenomenal places. And it was kind of like scouting to where we're going to be. We chose Amsterdam because it felt like we were needed here for like my husband's work. But before I left Australia, it was basically a 6 month period of clearing away all of our physical things, passing on my last kind of teaching that I needed to at that point with my students, and kind of I was a wrapping up of a lot of our lives, getting ready to move. As anyone who's ever relocated overseas with family, it is very giant. And so before I left, I started tapping into or getting told, like, okay, like you're. I was like, well, what am I like? Where am I meant to be? Like, what am I actually doing over there? What's this next phase? What's this next step? And I felt these elders of the ocean. Sorry if this is a little bit too out there, but like I could hear the elders of the ocean up here saying, like welcoming me in and saying, "Oh, you're from the Red Rock. Like it's time to come over here and learn with us for a while. And don't worry, we'll take you through everything." It wasn't until we went to the beach, went to the ocean here after we landed, that I felt them through the water, and I anchored in that connection a little bit more. It's very different here because the continent of Australia is very fiery. It's very hot. It's like it was getting referred to me as the Red Rock. And you know, I've gone to Uluru a few times, and I've been working with that land for a very long time. I know the highways underneath the land. I've had such a beautiful relationship working with the elders and the ancestors of that land, and I passed on what I needed to pass on for the continuation of my work there, so that I could move here and do this next level of work here. For me personally, it feels like I'm moving into. I was focused on earth to body connection. Now it feels like body, earth, stars connection. So over here is a little bit more cosmic. It feels like you're in a fairy tale. Literally looks like a fairy tale. It's been very different because Australia, the land of Australia, is a very solid rock, right? But here is sand. They're digging up the ground all the time, and it's all sand. It's man-made land on the ocean. It still holds the ley lines and everything. They're still connected with the ocean. So it's very watery, but it's also very dominated by the wind currents. Then you look at the flowers. You look at the actual what makes this land, and because I'm Western trained, I've learned through like English curriculum, like most people of Australia. We've learned the flowers from here. We've learnt the vegetation from here. So they grow very differently. Obviously, like for example, a lavender from France is very different from a lavender in Australia. They hold very different physical qualities, but also from an energetic perspective, the Australian lavender is much more harsh. It's much more strong. It has this force to it. Here, it's a little bit more mellow, a little bit more flowy. It's still got the strength, and it can definitely like bring in that strength, but there's this whimsicalness to it. I'm noticing it with the roses. Everything just grows very effortlessly here because it's the perfect environment for that grace to be expressed. It doesn't have. There's a harshness missing here. And obviously over the past decade, the wealth of knowledge that's coming and from Australian natural natives, like natural plants, is growing and definitely needs to be learned more traditionally from a traditional perspective. But things that are introduced they have to adapt, and it needs to be the right environment, just like anything, just like anyone. But I am definitely noticing here that it's much easier to access the lineage of the plants, and it's so effortless to hear the plants. And it's very hard to walk down a street because I'm stopping every 5 seconds to take a photo of a plant and have a chat. So my family's getting very patient. I'm just constantly discovering things, and they're constantly having a chat with like the plants going along the floor, up from the buildings. Another thing I noticed is that there's so many flowers, because to buy flowers here is quite cheap. And I am, for anyone working in councils, if you want to make your community beautiful, just make it accessible and easy for people to buy flowers, to buy plants, to buy seeds, because they will make your community very beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is like everywhere you go, there is like flowers, which, some places here have that, but not to that extent. Yeah. It's so interesting. Hey, I think I mentioned to you as well that my lineage is from the Netherlands, so I'm very intrigued by it. Haven't heard the call, but I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so that's really cool. Have you felt like you are you kind of working with the flowers over there to create your range now from those ones to really offer what's from the land that you're working with?
I feel like it's a growing body of work. So I created my Rosa Temple products, working with clients one-on-one and working in events and workshops, doing meditations and whatnot. And there was specific sequences of oils and essences that just kept coming together over and over. Like, okay, this is a collective one. There's too many people working with this for it to be not a collective experience, not a collective one. I feel like this is definitely adding to a bigger body of work, because I just want to be creating with them. At this present moment, I am on strict instructions from the flowers. They're just like, nope, come and we want to work with you. Come, we want to, for whatever is coming within my work. They want to come along for the ride, and if I don't listen to them, I feel like I'm going to get my ass handed to me. For example, I'll walk past some roses, and they're like, no, we want to work with you. Please come and make us. And okay, but I have to work this out strategically because it's raining, and then it's this. It's so scripted somewhere. I can feel it. I was in the south, and I kept noticing these beautiful bellflowers everywhere, and I just couldn't stop staring at them, and I was just falling in love with them. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that here. It's too, you got to give me something. And then my son kicked the ball over the fence, and I noticed that it was growing on the other side of my fence and literally poking through underneath my fence, underneath a wall of ivy, so that I could make it. So there's this very deep, interconnected relationship happening where I need to be listening all the time, which I am, to which road to take, which way to go. And I'm taking my cues from the flowers at the moment, because I know, and I have shared some of the vibrational medicines with some friends that have been passing through, and one of my rose essences I gave to one of my beautiful dear friends who was staying with us, and he took it and he was like, "Oh, it feels like being in a relationship. Like I love it." Like it was just hitting his heart, and he was loving it. And I also took him and another beautiful friend to my favorite spa here, and we all tried some of my essence, like one of my rose essences, before going into the spa. It was half an hour of being in the spa, and their hearts just open, and they're just chatting, and they're telling me all this stuff, and I was just loving it. Like it just opened up their heart, and they were just in bliss, and I was like, "Yep, this is effective. It's working."
That's beautiful.
So I'm taking my cues from the flowers, and just trusting where it's going. I know that it will lead to making more vibrational medicines. But for now, I know this next phase of our collective evolution is very much going to be vibrationally led, by vibration focus. Yeah. And if you're not clearing the capacity within yourself, like clearing all your crap so that you can hold the capacity to see the vibrational perspective, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But if you can see, you'll it's like you're on the natural line of the natural wave that's coming through. And it's going to be like another 5 years of absolute craziness or whatever. Not to make any kind of predictions or anything, but like it feels like we are naturally moving into more of a vibrationally led reality. And isn't it better to have eyes to see where you are rather than just putting your head down, bum up, and continuing in just a very matter of fact way? So that's why this is why the sensitive ones and the women especially, but like the sensitive ones, is their time to really shine.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I guess in that realm, just moving into a very last question, I would love if you could share then, I mean, maybe it's the same message, but I'd love if you could share what you believe the plant world and nature and the flowers would like the collective to know right now.
I feel like the message of the flowers right now is get on board or you're going to be dragged behind the fucking boat.
Yeah.
I feel like our inner maturity needs to awaken now, and the flowers, and nature as a whole, and the earth as a whole, is giving us every opportunity you can possibly imagine right now to step out of a viewpoint like a kid looking through the world through toilet roll binoculars that they've made for themselves, and take off the binoculars and realize that there's a giant world happening all around you that you are literally missing. And as a consequence of that, you are going to get the messages a little bit more harder and swifter than if you had just removed those limited perspectives. It is hard work because we are literally trained to not see different perspectives. And the hard work is literally letting go, because people are so hardwired to, if you let go, you lose control, therefore it's wrong, therefore you're not safe. No, that's not the actual reality of this world. The actual reality of this world is you are completely safe, you are completely supported, and you actually have a birthright to belong on this planet. You have a right to be here. And align yourself with nature right now. Align yourself with the natural law of this earth, because that is the clearest path forward. And what that means is it's literally accessing your sovereignty within yourself, accessing your inner world, because your inner world is nature. And we've just convinced ourselves that we're in this industrialized revolution that has literally put us in a prison. Yes, there's a lot of people around the world right now that are definitely in situations where they are not safe. But there is something that every one of us can do every single day, and it is drop deeper and deeper into that deeper sensation of feeling a belonging with the world, belonging with the earth. And from there, you grow your roots down and then you grow tall. And that's what we all need to be doing right now. And the plants are definitely showing us that over and over and over by modeling it themselves. And we just need to clean our eyes so that we can see what's actually happening around us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That was beautiful. And I agree that that's what the plants are calling for. And the beautiful thing about flower essences and vibrational medicine is it opens us up to these new perceptions. You know, it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. It opens us up to these so that we can choose to see them, choose to witness them, choose to,
Absolutely. It only gets more harder when you aren't listening or you have a fear of losing it. So yeah, there's this next phase is like there is a massive waking up of the planet right now. There's an acceleration of energy happening right now. And yeah, that's why my next course it's called Solar, and it is an activation of the solar frequencies. Obviously, if you've been watching solar flares and everything getting bigger, and but how do we work with the energy that's coming in more gracefully? How do we open up our capacity to hold more of our creative energy, more of our creative life force? And how do we translate that into external creativity without getting overwhelmed and overloaded? So like everyone right now is overwhelmed because they've got their day-to-day, and then they've got their own personal journey, and then they've got all of this flux of information and man-made information coming in. Well, how do you deal with it all? You increase your capacity to move the energy through and not get so stuck on the information that your body doesn't actually want. Solar is 4 weeks of meditations to focus on this and to help people manage this next period with as much grace and ease as possible.
Beautiful. And are they live or are they are recorded?
They will be recorded as well.
Beautiful. So where can the listeners find that offering of yours? So
it's a www.rosamisty.ca RosaMysti.ka, the Rose Mystica, which is my overarching body of work, and or through my Instagram, Sarah Baiada, and the link is through there and all the information. And if you have any other information, please contact me. And I'm definitely doing one-on-one work, and I'm going to be starting some mentoring, bigger work soon as well, and bigger teachings.
Beautiful. Well, and I'll put everything in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for coming on to the Flower Prophecies and sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed your podcast, and my beautiful friend Sophia Palmer was on, and I loved her episode, and I love her so much. She was actually sending me posted pictures of her roses before I came on. We are literally communicating to each other through pictures of flowers and the messages coming through the flowers to each other. So yeah, like I am loving your podcast as well. So thank you for offering it.
Thank you so much. It's been, beautiful to chat to you and hear your experience, and I look forward to connecting more. And Sophia was a gem. I love that episode as well. It's been one of the very popular ones, no doubt. But it's just been beautiful to connect, and I'm sure we'll connect again soon. So thank you.